right, thanks everyone for coming for the talk today. The topic of the talk is building a AAA quality blockchain game at an indie studio. So at Blockade Games, we've been working on Neon District since January, and we've kind of gone through a lot of changes in that time. And I kind of want to walk you through a bit of what we've done. And actually, I don't. 1 second. How do I change the slide? This right here. Awesome. Thank you. All right. So a bit about me. I'm Ben Heidorn. I'm the CTO for Blockade Games. I've been working on cryptocurrency projects, largely applications in the mainstream space for about 3 years. I was at Penn State for a while, going for my PhD in computer science. That's on hiatus while I work at Blockade Games. And this is some of our amazing team. I cannot emphasize how proud and excited I am to work with some of these people. We have a phenomenal founding team, and we've started bringing on people with plenty of experience working at Valve. Is that too much? I'm very bad at this. It's okay. Yeah, so we brought some people in who have experience at Valve, who have worked at, we brought some testers from Blizzard, people who have, game designers have worked at Wizards of the Coast, Upper Deck. Some of the games that our team has produced, the art director actually just worked on the new Spider-Man game that everyone is being spammed right now. It looks awesome. I haven't played it yet. We also have our game designers worked on a World of Warcraft trading card game, which became Hearthstone. How do I start the video?
I was born in a golden age. New economies brought prosperity to mankind. Borders blurred as free trade reigned. But the old paradigm resisted the shift. Nations lashed out, and violence ensued. In the streets, and in the skies. Some chose to carry on the revolution, while others forged alliances and embraced new technology and advancements in robotics to build vast underground cities that offered refuge from the ruthless conflict that raged on the surface. They built cognitive operatives to scavenge the wastes, indifferent to the suffering of those who remained.
That's the first trailer for Neon District. Nice. Cool. So yeah, that's the full cinematic that really sets the tone for what we're trying to build here at Blockade Games. So a bit about the origin of Blockade Games. Marguerite Ducourcel has been working on Neon District, the concept of it, for, I want to say, a few years. Maybe not consciously, but through her puzzle making, through her love of the cyberpunk ethos, has been like slowly cooking the ideas for Neon District. And in October of last year, hired our lead artist, Diego, to start working on the concept art for the game. And then in December, decided to spam a bunch of us with direct messages on Twitter, like, hey, I want to make this game. Are you interested? And I immediately said yes. So throughout January, we worked like 12 to 16-hour days. We just put our heart and soul into putting out the first version of the, well, on paper, of what the game was going to be. And we put out an announcement on Bitcoin Talk, which was popular to do at the time. And we wrote up a white paper. And the feedback was really strong. A lot of people were asking if we were doing an ICO, which we didn't. And a lot of people copied our paper, which is kind of flattering, honestly. So the original game was an RPG with Ethereum trading cards. And we really wanted to highlight Diego's art because it looks fantastic. We wanted to make sure that people were able to feel like they were owning assets that were true art and then being able to experience the blockchain experience by playing a game that actually used these. So the original idea of the game was that it was a web-based experience, very similar to CryptoKitties, Axie Infinity, a lot of blockchain games right now. The NFTs were cards. They were traditional 721 assets. It was entirely on Ethereum, which I will get into that in a bit. The player versus player combat was really simple. You would issue a few moves, and then it would be rectified on chain, and then you would decide whether or not the match would continue. And the thing that really stuck from this time period was the notion of proof of play. And I know some of you have a notion of what proof of play means. It's not like a way of validating blocks on a chain. Rather, we wanted to make a game where our company did not define the value of the assets or the rarity. We wanted people to play the game. And then as you played, those assets gained experience, they changed, they gained scars in battle, and they become rare over time. And then in this secondary marketplace, you could eventually sell these things that you have worked so hard to build up. So we actually had to start to pivot. Not long after the white paper came out, the Pineapple Fund came to us and asked us to work on a side project with them, and we couldn't say no. And that became the Pineapple Arcade, which is pineapplearcade.net. Shameless plug. You can go play it. There's a lot of games up there, and we're doing a revamp. But during this time, we had also hired our first game designer dedicated to building out Neon District. And that leads to the first pivot. Our game designer made a very strong case that we should go for a full card game. And that had a lot to do with the art assets. We realized that an RPG on-chain wouldn't make quite as much sense as making a lot of cards that people could buy and collect. But we wanted to keep that proof of play aspect, so the cards would change over time. We thought it was pretty good. We played with it for a while. There were a couple iterations of it. And then in March of this year, we went to GDC, the Game Developers Conference in San Francisco, where we actually got to get direct feedback from professionals in the industry. And they were pretty critical of it. And it really caused us to take a step back and reevaluate what it was we were building. GDC also kind of was like a solid punch to the face when we realized the game that we're building is not quite as engaging as we had hoped. So that led to our second pivot, which is a lot closer to what we're building now. And that's an RPG with crafting. So the previous RPG version in the white paper was very simple. It was all on-chain. It was pretty cut and dry. We wanted to go full RPG. We wanted like Final Fantasy-like experience, and we wanted blockchain behind that. So what changed? We didn't go with web-based. We decided to switch over to Unity, which allows us to build for desktop and mobile. The NFTs are no longer cards. They are now characters, their equipment, their armor, weapons, their materials that are used to craft. It gets a lot more involved and a lot more complex and a lot more interesting. And we began to build up our team with experts. There we go. So as we pivoted the game design, we had to pivot the technical design as well. So you can't make a full-fledged game and have it all on Ethereum. It doesn't scale. It doesn't work. So there were two major requirements that we had for Neon District. And that was we wanted to onboard people with as little friction as possible. We wanted a seamless gaming experience. And we wanted to make sure that people were not signing transactions every 5 seconds. So we had to think about different ways that we could make this happen. So we pretty much struck out the idea of doing it all on-chain. And we considered the Raiden network. but we realized that that doesn't quite meet the needs that we have. The first idea that kind of stuck and got us thinking outside of the box was using multiple blockchains. And there was, for a period of time, the idea of putting the NFTs on Ethereum and then putting the game state on something like Decred or Ubiq or Ethereum Classic. And then we kind of kept thinking about that, and we realized, well, why don't we just make our own private network and then just tether that to Ethereum? It would make things a lot easier for us to work with. And if that sounds really familiar, like maybe another project out there that's kind of doing that, yeah. So we found out about Loom, and we applied to their beta program in April, and we were accepted, thankfully. And in May, we started working with them openly, and it's been a phenomenal experience. We love working with them. And that allows us to do crazy things. So we can go ahead with our cutting-edge NFT technology and really make the contracts that we want. So one of the first things we wanted to do was have a very involved crafting system. And that means taking fungible tokens, non-fungible tokens, merging them together, making some really cool item, and then keep iterating over and over and doing that. And there was a contract proposed called 998, which allowed for composables. So we started exploring into that and kind of making a spike to play around with that idea. But we also needed to know how to mint assets immediately and kind of keep some secrets from the user. We didn't want a contract for every single asset. So we decided to look into Engine Coin's 1155 standard. And they've done a very good job of making a way for people to mint assets without giving away, without showing your whole hand of cards of everything that you have. And we built spikes by combining the two of those together, the 1155 and the 998 standard. And that allows us to basically have our cake and eat it too. We can make our assets, you can craft, you can do all these really cool things. And it can all happen on the sidechain, and it doesn't cost you anything, and you don't have to realize that it's happening. So some of the really cool things that lets us do is that you can buy your items for USD, for fiat money, or you can use any other cryptocurrency, and you can buy your items, and we will mint them directly to you on your account. And it also allows us to bring on players and mint their tokens to them at no cost, or very little cost, rather. So we want to essentially be baby's first crypto. We want people to download the game, open up their account, and then behind the scenes, their wallet is created. And they select their first character, and once they play the game a little bit, we realize they're not a bot. We're then going to mint their token to them. And then as they play the game, they gain experience, new equipment, new characters, and all of that gets minted directly to their account. They never have to know about it. And if they become so engrossed in the game, and then they realize, oh, you know what? I actually want to take my assets and bring them over to another game. They can do that. And that's when they'll be motivated. They will want to learn more about what is the cryptocurrency behind this. Like, I want to see what I can do. That's the experience that we want to create. So a bit about our technical stack. I've already covered blockchain. The server backend is Java and Vertex. We're doing message passing and protobufs. We're using Redis for caching and Postgres for persistence. And we're deploying the whole thing on AWS. The Unity client layer, of course, we're doing the user interface now in Unity. We are using the spine for 2D animation, which you'll get to see a bit of that soon. I don't know how good it'll look, but you should follow our Twitter account, because then you can see a lot of animated characters. So with this, we have the technical division of labor. And this was a very calculated decision, something that we had taken a lot of time to come to. We wanted the Ethereum mainnet to provide liquidity. We want these assets to have value, and we don't want to arbitrarily give them value, and we don't want to tie them to our own token. We want Ethereum to give them that value. And this allows us, Loom allows us to provide that liquidity at the same time as being able to scale. So we have our own sidechain. And then we have the central server, because I am honestly a conservative developer. I'm very careful. I like to try to use the best technology for each part of the stack. And what makes sense for us is because we want to scale up to hundreds of thousands of players, hopefully millions. We need to do this on trusted technology that we know has been working for decades. So we're using a central server to manage reliability and availability for the game, the sidechain and the mainnet for people's NFTs and everything they own. And that brings us to the rapid prototyping phase. I am taking so much more time than I anticipated. I'm going to have to move pretty quick, aren't I? Yeah. You guys are really excited for 5 minutes from now when the next talk comes up. All right, so one of the tenets that we have here at Blockade Games is we need to prototype fast. We need to make sure that our ideas work. So one of the first things that we did after the first pivot is that we wanted to make sure that our idea that the art could be adapted and changed over time looked really good. So Diego and I spent about 2 days. We put together this really quick prototype, which you actually see at the end of the video, of putting on and off different layers and then changing the color. There was a time when we had to decide whether or not, as we realized, we wanted to have this highly involved crafting system and like layer art pieces on top of art pieces. Would it make more sense to go 3D? And we did a bit of research into that. And we realized that going full 3D meant a 2 to 5 times increase in cost and at least a 2 times increase in time. And as an independent studio, that's not going to jive with us. We're really thankful about that because we really prefer the 2D art style. So we're glad that we can continue that way. So the artists had to prototype as well. Originally, they were going for the more realistic style. And they kind of realized over time that it made more sense to move toward the more manga style because it allowed for a quicker design and a more fluid process. And then here we started prototyping, or the artist, rather, I am not an artist, started prototyping the different body types. So we have the heavy body types and the medium and the light types. And you can also see the psychic characters that we have. Not sure if that's going to make it in the final game, but it looks really cool. So I wanted to make sure you saw this. And then, of course, we had to go back to the first prototype and test on layering, yeah? And then that actually looks good. But yeah, you can see this is what happens when we can take spine and we can take our characters and we can put everything together in one piece. So you're going to see your game experience is going to have a lot of characters that are like fully animated, artistically beautiful, honestly, and fully unique the way that you design them. And then that will be your game experience. And yes, please follow us on District RPG. So we had to do some UI UX prototypes. Because we're going mobile, we need to make sure that it is a simple, engaging experience while still offering depth and complexity to the players who put in so much time and effort into it. This is the process of selecting your first character, and then it's minted directly to your account. Again, all behind the scenes. And as you really build out the game, you can set up your party layout. It's not shown here, but up there would be your full character. And as you put pieces on and off, it changes. And you can actually see in real time what your new NFT is going to look like. Your truly unique non-fungible token. The crafting system, we, again, I'm not going to go too much into this because we're still really figuring out how this is going to work. But we did have to prototype the crafting system. And I mentioned earlier that we had the spikes with the combination of 1155 and the 998 standard. And it was really fun to put that all together and then get a web-based prototype where we kind of got to try everything at once. It's really cool. So here we have a bunch of items that we came up with, and then we can craft them and basically decide what they become. It's really neat. Security. So real quick, I mentioned the Pineapple Arcade. Given our puzzle history, I don't know how many of you are familiar with that, but these puzzles, including that one up there, by the way, so take a picture, has private keys. They are hidden prizes that you can solve. And this kind of honey seems to attract a certain kind of fly. And that fly happens to be hackers and pen testers. So we've had people come in and try to break our systems over and over again. And thankfully, they like us. It would be a problem if they didn't. And they're very active in our community, and that's great, because that means we can utilize them to do audits, and we're going to be pen testing our own programs, because even though we're making a game, security is still paramount. This is still cryptocurrency. And finally, I want to end the talk with the visions of the NFT multiverse that we're going for. We want to collaborate. We want to work with other games and other universes, and we want our tokens to be available in your game. We want your tokens available in ours, and we believe that a rising tide lifts all boats. When one game does very well, if they have the collaboration with other games, that means more people are going to be onboarded, more games are going to be known about. And that's actually one of the great things about one of our advisors, Chris LeBerum, the designer for Age of Rust. He's making a 3D version of the game, and there are some of our Neon District posters in the background. So it's going to be really fun. And thanks. I am exactly 20 minutes, so thank you very much for your time, and enjoy the keynote.